Mr. Putin, dead or alive in his fridge like Schrodinger's cat in its box, is not the only mad despot on the world stage at the moment. We've got our own, which is Mr. Trump, an English-speaking despot. We find ourselves at another juncture where the line between madness and strategy and global politics is blurred the by the slow freeze of a popsicle. Donald Trump never want, or in this case, probably by the slow freeze of a Diet Coke. Donald Trump, never want to shy away from theatrical diplomacy, has escalated tensions within NATO by declaring that all options must be on the table. If that phrasing suggests that military action against a fellow NATO member is a possibility, then we have indeed entered a new and disturbing phase in brinkmanship. And one must, of course, consider the strategic importance of Greenland, where the US already maintains a presence at the Thule Air Base, and the idea of expanding that presence is not inherently absurd. Enhanced early warning capabilities and sea line control are crucial in countering Russian maneuvers in the Arctic, but Trump's characteristic bombast in framing the discussion as a matter of ownership rather than strategic cooperation is where rational policy fractures into dangerous provocation. The US should be working with Denmark, not strong-arming it, and simultaneously the US finds itself in a heated trade dispute with Canada, an ally that shares more than just a border, but a deep military and economic tie with the US. The willingness to throw these relationships into jeopardy over tariffs and manufacturing disputes underscores the transactional nature of Trump's foreign policy. Mexico at least managed to placate him with a commitment to border security, but Canada faces a more complex situation, one that could fray the very fabric of North American solidarity. And meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Keir Starmer's European tour focuses on security and a renewed commitment to Ukraine. And while there are murmurs about an emerging European defence pact, this doesn't necessarily conflict with NATO. Indeed, cooperation between the EU and NATO is not just practical but essential, and the danger lies in duplicating efforts rather than complementing them. The French, unsurprisingly, are keen to carve out a more autonomous defence role for Europe, but even they must recognise that NATO remains indispensable. And Trump's potential return to power he is already in power, but his potential return to madness and craziness raises alarm bells regarding America's commitment to Ukraine. His rhetoric suggests that he sees Ukraine not as a front line of democratic defence, but as a bargaining chip. And the European allies, Britain included, must brace themselves for the possibility of diminished US military support. The involvement of Elon Musk, who's now halted USAID operations in Ukraine, only adds to the concern that private actors with their own agenda are shaping the course of this war in unsettling ways. And Trump's insistence on NATO members spending 5% of GDP on defence is frankly unrealistic. Even the US doesn't reach that threshold. Britain has always been a strong NATO contributor, but its current level of 2.5% falls short of Trump's demands. Given Starmer's relatively warm early rapport with Trump, Britain may play a crucial role in brokering a sustainable NATO spending agreement that's both realistic and robust. But, there's so much going on with Trump at the moment. I mean, he's barely got his legs under the under that desk, that famous Victorian desk. And then in true Trumpian fashion, we arrive at the cultural battlegrounds. Yesterday, Trump signed an executive order banning transgender athletes from competing in women's sports. And this move, timed to coincide with the National Girls and Women's Day in Sport Day, is framed as a defence of female athletes, but it's in reality another salvo in his broader assault on transgender rights and on freedom. And the spectacle of signing the order surrounded by young girls underscores the political theatre of the moment. This is not about policy, but about performance from a man who only a couple of months ago was facing a court for his behaviour. On the subject of conflict, Trump's defence team has declared that the US is prepared to look at all options in Gaza. Well, yeah, but the options of building US holiday homes on the seafront, the level of ambiguity is is not reassuring, particularly given Trump's history of transactional diplomacy. The forced displacement of Palestinians is, as Human Rights Watch rightly points out, a potential war crime. And yet the language emanating from Trump's circle suggests that drastic measures rather than diplomacy are on the table. In all this, there is passion, yes, but what we see most is madness. In a world shaped by impulsive decision-making and reactionary policies, NATO is under strain, allies are being antagonized, and fundamental rights are being rewritten by executive order. What we need now is calm, not anxiety, not further anxiety. We must ask ourselves, how much of this is bluster? How much of this is the opening gambit of a fundamental shift in world order? The madness of Trump may yet have a method, but if history teaches us anything, and I prefer to think of the last days of the Roman Republic, and I'm afraid I see the spectre of Marius, the madness of Trump is when bluster meets reality, the consequences are often far graver than anything we might have anticipated.